said I've never seen such hideousness in all my life.
Listen to all of this,
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Like a furry torpedo to the jugular. This is Honey Badger Radio. Radio with Buddy.
Flaws?
Get a load of this, folks.
Women can have flaws?
Don't try to change the subject.
Just like men?
Oh, brother.
What color of pill do we take to get rid of that?
I don't know.
As we've discussed our history over the last 2 episodes of HBR Talk, we've pointed out the experiences and lessons that brought us together. We've been revisiting an incident on Reddit that revealed a divide between women and the movement depending on whether or not gynocentrism colors the individual's response to the issues and the related conversations. Most MRAs know the red pill referenced in Men's Issues discussion refers to that scene in The Matrix where the character Neo, living in a computer-generated illusion, is offered the chance to leave it for reality, represented by swallowing a red pill, or choose to remain in a state of full immersion in the illusion, represented by swallowing a blue pill. We think of someone as blue-pilled if they buy into prevailing beliefs about gender issues, hook, line, and sinker. Alright, I do not know why this is not displaying properly, because it's... for crying out loud. There's only one window for it to display. But I'm going to start the damn video over. Yeah, it didn't, like, OBS didn't have any reason to do this. There's literally no reason for OBS to do this. So I've reloaded the damn window, and we'll see here why it did that is beyond me.
Well, since the illusion of technical competency is shattered.
Oh no, this is not a technical incompetency. This is the software not working properly. Because the window that it's displaying now is the window it was displaying before. It just didn't display the window progressing, and for some reason. But I can go on with the video.
Yeah, I'm just going to tell you, just give you a note before you continue. Just end it once it gets to the part where we're talking about the fundraiser.
Okay.
Just so we don't
want
have
me to not
again.
play the part about the fundraiser, in other words.
Yeah, because we don't need to belabor the point on the stream. And thank you guys for sticking with us through these technical difficulties that, you know, I'm pretty sure you're already aware that we have them quite a bit.
Oh my God. Like, why can't Brian help us out with this?
Because it's not something that is a human error, it's a software error.
Well,
yeah,
that's true, but
he didn't write the software, so he wouldn't have been able to do anything differently than I did.
well,
Yeah.
but at least we'd have a man to. But at least we'd have a man to blame.
No, I don't blame Brian. I like
Nobody
Brian.
blames Brian.
Let's blame
let's
blame David Futrell. If we're gonna blame a man, we can blame David Futrell because we don't like him.
Well,
isn't that what women do?
I didn't like him.
I know.
Like I don't think he's responsible for our technical difficulties. But
no, he's got enough of his own.
Yeah. Let's not
so
put any more problems on David Futrell. I think he has.
There we go.
He's been given more than his fair share. So let's just start.
I'm going to replay my silly opening with my sound effects. And by the way, I just found another public domain movie recently, so I have more sound effects, but they're not in this. So just for future reference. Flaws?
Get a load of this, folks.
Women can have flaws?
Don't try to change the subject.
Just like men?
Oh, brother.
What color of pill do we take to get rid of that?
I don't know.
As we've discussed our history over the last 2 episodes of HBR Talk, we've pointed out the experiences and lessons that brought us together. We've been revisiting an incident on Reddit that revealed a divide between women and the movement depending on whether or not gynocentrism colors the individual's response to the issues and the related conversations. Most MRAs know the red pill referenced in Men's Issues discussion refers to that scene in The Matrix where the character Neo, living in a computer-generated illusion, is offered the chance to leave it for reality, represented by swallowing a red pill, or choose to remain in a state of full immersion in the illusion, represented by swallowing a blue pill. We think of someone as blue-pilled if they buy into prevailing beliefs about gender issues hook, line, and sinker, and red-pilled if they are aware of the discrimination and social disadvantage men face. The movement has broken down the red pill analogy to include a third choice, the purple pill. Purple pill individuals have some awareness of men's issues, but still favor prevailing narratives and try to fit what they have learned into those narratives. This viewpoint leads to odd reactions like recognizing only part of an issue, or recognizing the problem but ignoring or even being offended by the mention of women's role in its cause. The latter often manifests as treating recognition that both sexes contribute to the causes of various gender issues as an attack on women. Part of this is a result of feminism's 20th century interference with the evolution of gender roles. Once upon a time, there was a trade-off under which women were considered to have earned special treatment. That treatment was contingent on eschewing rough behaviors like heavy drinking, fighting, and sexual promiscuity. Women were presumed morally superior and expected to live up to that. They were presumed gentler than men and expected to live up to that as well. Even feminine aesthetics were about being something more special than a man, which is why women did, and still do, have the luxury of being taken seriously while wearing clothing that is strictly decorative, designed to be sexually provocative, and restricts one's ability to perform heavy or hard labor. In return to living up to those standards, women were entitled to certain concessions not afforded to men. They could display more delicate sensibilities, such as offense at rough language or crude subject matter, and expect their aversions to be indulged. They could expect exemption from some of life's responsibilities like supporting a family, or even themselves. It was not just thought of as a gentleman's responsibility, but his honor to assist a woman in need, and doing harm to a woman was taboo for any man. Women who lived up to the moral and social standards associated with their traditional role were considered honorable in a way that deserved veneration. Men who lived up to theirs revered them. Most women mistakenly call this attitude respect. Feminists of the 20th century demanded women be released from the constraints of social obligation. They pushed for women to be able, without expecting judgment for it, to be as crass, as violent, and as sexually promiscuous as they believe men to be, and in many cases, more. Feminists fought for this under the guise of equality, demanding society acknowledge not only equality of rights and human value, but capability and toughness, whether women exhibited them or not. Their agitation exempted women from our side of the bargain, yet most women still expect men to offer them that reverence they so badly mislabel. Now, we discuss gender issues in an environment in which the daughters and granddaughters of those feminist generation were raised to expect that deference without any understanding of where and how that expectation originated. The idea of a purple pill covers a lot of ground, but it leaves out a phenomenon among women, the ability to seem fully red-pilled as long as they get to remain on that pedestal of moral superiority to men, where they can expect to be venerated and coddled. We saw in the Lady MRA's dust-up how this can lead to women taking the impersonal so personally that they are unable to accept the legitimacy of men's experiences, much less any conclusions those experiences lead men to that may be unflattering to women. The charge of misogyny against the men's rights movement is largely based on that sensitivity. We've seen women who get that due process is a civil right vital to the system's ability to weed out false accusations, but then fail to understand that calling a man a deadbeat for not wanting to fund his female partner's reproductive choices is also a false allegation. God forbid you point out that the dearth of women stepping up to oppose false accusers' exploitation of legal infringements on due process reflects badly on the character of the entire sex. Why, you must have the soggiest of knees! We could come up with a different shade to describe every way in which gynocentric attitudes and pedestalization of women impacts the movement, but we really don't need to because it all boils down to specific factors. How one perceives and exercises or experiences personal agency, personal accountability, compassion, emotional sensitivity, and one's sense of responsibility all affect one's outlook on gender issues. Those factors are then fed through a filter of one's political outlook. whether more authoritarian or libertarian, whether more right or left-leaning. At the other end of this, few women recognize the basic fact that no matter what their personal matrix of these factors happens to be, labeling something a human right and then reserving consideration in that area for women does not constitute equality, and neither does labeling something an adult responsibility and then exempting women from it. The ability to advocate from a perspective that does not demand the pedestal, that does not react to criticism with oversensitivity, that does not differentiate between the sexes in terms of agency, accountability, compassion, and sense of responsibility. That is the dividing line between women who approach men's issues with a gynocentric perspective and women who do not. It separates women who don't take things personally from women who don't know how to refrain from doing so. And it separates women who view the men's rights movement as a threat from those able to consider the issues without balking at the potential challenges doing so raises for women's place in society. Prior to the fiasco with the Lady MRAs, Factory wrote a piece for A Voice for Men titled, "To the Women Who Are Not Like That," thanking women, Allison in particular, who have been a part of the men's rights movement, and pointing out that he felt the rarity of women who don't demonize men and aren't scared away by men's anger at the current environment needed a label. That post and the resulting discussion is where we are going to begin tonight. Okay,
right,
so I cut it off at the cutoff point. I am officially the appropriate cutter-offer of things.
Excellent.
Good job.
Excellent. Yes, the cutter-offer of excellent things.
Okay, so I just closed out the
psi tube. Yeah.
Because
yeah.
stuff I don't even. Oh my god.
Oh my god, dog. That's what's gonna happen.
Oh my god, dog.
Oh my god, dog.
What
All right.
the hell?
What the hell?
That totally sounds like a refrain that could be put to the tune of "Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my god, dog, oh my god, dog,
Oh my god, dog,
oh my god, you freaking mutt,
Dog, what? Oh my god, dog.
See?
Oh my god, you're clicking.
No, I just
we
just
need a
literally noticed-
montage put to music.
Yeah.
I just
montage.
Okay, I just noticed that my dog brought a full roll of toilet paper out of the bathroom.
It's his commentary on her commentary on feminism. Clearly,
Okay, I think you need to deal with
it's
that, Karen.
Yeah, I'm just going to. Nobody cares what you have to say, dog. Nobody.
Go.
Well, while
Go
Karen
deal
and
with
her
your
dog
dog.
are
I just
dealing
want-
with feminism shit, I do
turn
have
your
an
mic
intro.
off while you- Could you
I
turn-
just don't understand. I don't understand why my dog eats things that aren't food when she has a full bowl of food sitting there.
Because she's a dog, and that's what they
'Cause
do.
Dog.
Food doesn't give it as much attention from you as eating other things.
Yeah, that probably is.
Everything
That's very
else is
insightful.
interesting.
Yeah, it just
Everything
loves
else is interesting.
the oh my god, dog.
Prim has insight. Prim has
Yeah.
insight into the psychology of the dog. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, well, my
So-
dog has borderline
Can I make a
personality
request
disorder.
before
so-
we do your intro, Hannah?
The request, yes.
Do you ever get to- Okay, can we read Factory's
That's
statement?
what I'm introducing.
Oh my god! Okay, I'm gonna shut up now.
Not oh my
That was what I read.
god, it's
yeah.
oh my god, dog.
Oh my
Yes.
god, dog. All right.
Yeah,
Okay,
that
I'm gonna shut
it
up.
sounds like perfect slang there. Yo, dog. Oh my god, dog. So anyway, hello and welcome to HBR Talk 33, 50 Shades of Red. and the chaos that is
And
Honey
aren't we
Badger
red?
Radio.
Aren't
Yes.
we red?
No,
Right
I'm
now,
not. I
we're
think
all
this is
red.
funny. This is entertaining. If I was listening to this, I would be entertained. Well, okay, that's not
Are
really.
you entertained? Are you?
That's not really a good
Really?
measure, is it? Because I don't get bored. So, in any case, I'm your host, Hannah Wallen, here with our fearless leader, Allison Tiemann, and Woozle Slayer, Karen Strawn, and that adorable specter of death, Prim Reaper, to take a further trip down memory lane. As with the last couple of weeks, we're taking a break from the Accountability Gap series to go over a little history, because even in the few years that we've been doing what we do, our group and our audience has grown and changed. And we wanted to talk a little bit about where we came from, where we're coming from, and how this whole thing got started. And lo and behold, accountability came up anyway. Imagine that. But before we get on with today's topic, a couple of reminders. If you're on YouTube and it starts experiencing platform malfunction syndrome that's not caused by OBS malfunctioning, and it won't let you listen, we're also on Twitch and Facebook because you can't keep a good badger down. And hopefully we didn't lose Facebook by being late starting today. If you want to be sure you're always going to catch our live streams, even if YouTube decides to throw us in a gulag for wrong think, and one of our channels is in there right now, or, you know, Facebook doesn't start because we were late, or if you just want to catch our show in its audio format, remember to go to badgerfeed.com and register to receive notifications. With that, back to the show. We've been discussing the first of two incidents that led to the group identifying and coming together over the needs I described in the opening. And I want to continue that discussion by actually reading off Karen's post to Lady MRAs. But before we continue with that, we really need to take a look at the post and comment discussion that inspired the name Honey Badgers, which occurred prior to the Lady MRAs dust-up, and which is relevant. In fact, in hindsight, it's kind of ironic. Now, this was in a Voice for Men post. The person who shared it frequently shared letters from Factory. I don't think Factory posted, I don't think this is the name Factory posted under. I think this was, because he had his name in the Discord, and it was actually a different name. So, the letter is to the women that aren't like that. Now, for those listeners that do not come to us from the men's rights movement, the women who are not like that meme comes from, we used to get in Reddit particularly, but in a lot of men's rights forums.
Hannah, just wait a second.
Okay.
Hannah.
You're going robo again.
You're going. I'm not exactly sure what's going on.
Okay,
with it.
why don't you send me the link through the thing and I can read this post?
Okay.
Actually,
can you guys
because
hear me?
it seems to be that yes, we can now, but
okay.
Like,
so a Voice
knows?
for Men is apparently the problem. Let me try.
Yeah, let me open it. Let me open it. I can read it out.
Okay,
well,
if that's
then
what
I
you
won't have
want,
anything
right?
to display. Yeah, but no, because it's not exactly what I want, because there was something I was trying to explain first, so I'm going to explain that first, and then you can read. Okay. And there are also 3 or 4 different points in the post that I wanted to talk about. So,
all right.
Before Karen says anything, I'm going to go ahead and let our blank television here show. And we'll see if OBS deals with. Yeah, see, now there we go. I have minimized the window and it's still showing it, so that's not a bad thing. I might actually just leave it like that. I haven't closed anything, but I'm not going robo for you guys right now, am I?
No, you're good.
Yeah,
you're excellent.
Okay, so it's WordPress. WordPress is apparently doing so much stuff that my computer cannot simultaneously do that and the other 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things I have to have open to do this show. But in it specifically that site. I don't know if our WordPress site does it or not. It might just be a Voice for Men. But in any case, so the women who are not like that meme. Like I said, in various men's rights forums, we used to get, you make a criticism of a behavior. For instance, false allegations, and you talk about how false allegations affect the accused, and you talk about how false allegations affect the court system, and you talk about how false allegations affect maybe even credible victims who are not false accusers. So you have a whole discussion over the impact and issues with false allegations. And some woman comes in and says, not all women are false accusers. You know, because she sees posts in the discussion that use the word women to describe false accusers and don't say some in front of them. So this is a thing of women having a habit of presuming all if it is not specified, not all. Feminists do the same thing. And so there's not all women are like that, and not all feminists are like that, are frequently cited as excuses made, and so on. But at the same time, it's also had to be pointed out within those forums to some more black-pilled users, people who are trod on enough and shit on enough that they've pretty much decided that the behavior of unscrupulous and unaccountable women is actually just a female characteristic, and all women are like that. And so there's also the discussion that, hey, there are women that can be trusted, and you should focus on accountability and other characteristics that tell you who you can and cannot trust, because you're always going to have to deal with women. So this particular post was a letter specifically to the women who are not like that, but don't make excuses. Because the moment you make excuses, you're no longer a woman who's not like that. And with that, Karen, if you want to go ahead and read the post.
Okay, so this was written by Tom Givens. And
actually, no, it wasn't written by Tom Givens. It was written by Dan Moore, but posted by Tom Givens.
Oh, okay. All
Factory
right.
wrote this. Remember Factory?
Yes, Factory. Okay. Although the subject of women in the MRM is not currently a hot-button issue, I want to write a small missive to them from a nearly worn-out old hand. In part, what I want to do is thank you from the bottom of my heart. I am well aware that for some of you, the road has been as long as mine. Cough, Typhon, cough. And something like this has been a long time coming. So along with my thanks comes an apology for its tardiness. Dog! Oh my God, dog!
There's certainly no problem with having Karen read.
Kevin!
Oh my God! Oh my dog! Okay.
Okay. I will zap the fuck out of you, dog. No, I will actually put a vibrate on her collar on. Okay. Honey,
she's taking it personally.
Just grab the dog away from the window and.
All right. Can I just point out that Typhon is actually me and Factory go back a long ways, and Typhon is my username that I used to have, Typhon Blue, and so when he says cough Typhon end cough, he's talking about me. And
yeah.
And if Dan, if you're listening to this, thank you. It's been a strange and bumpy road. Long, strange, and bumpy.
That it has.
Yeah. I knew Dan from Stand Your Ground 2005. So there you go. So wow. 13 years now.
Yeah. Okay, so before we go on, we have a super chat that I'm going to read, but in order to do that one, I really need to do the one before it, so I don't forget that one. So the first one, which is way back here in the... What the fuck? Did it disappear?
Zamara.
Okay, no, Zamara0292 gave us $4.99 and said, look, learning that you do your monologues live and not pre-recorded means you earned my money 100 times over. Hot dank memes. Damn, I am impressed. Okay, so we don't. Actually, I don't do my monologues live. That was a pre-recording. It's just that when I play it, I have to play it live, and apparently OBS was having problems. And apparently, having a Voice for Men open in Chrome and the window with a Voice for Men open prominently displayed on the screen prevents the OBS window from progressing. So yeah. It just apparently I can only do so many things at a time on this laptop. Anyway, so there's that. But the one that I wanted to read now because of the dog was "What kind of dog?" and that came from Chris K, who gave us $2.79. He says, "What kind of dog?"
Okay.
You missed that lolicon though. He says, "I care what the dog has to say."
Well, there you go.
I did. I missed that lolicon. That lolicon.
The dog's comment has been made evident, so its commentary has been added to the stream.
That's for sure.
Woof, woof, woof. Woof, 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 woof. Yeah, because somebody was daring to walk on the sidewalk outside.
Hey, it's been a long
okay,
time
Chris
since.
K. Chris K, what kind of dog is it? I believe the actual official name of the breed is Trailer Park. She seems to be afflicted with a mental condition that is common, extremely common among cats, but very rare among dogs, and that is borderline personality disorder. So she has issues. She's got problems. She's got
I think
serious
in animals,
freaking problems.
in animals, it's just called feline personality disorder.
Yeah, no, she literally she's like, I love you. I'm gonna bite your face. Why don't you like me?
Yep.
And so it's just like she's not vicious. She's actually so unbelievably friendly and socially exuberant and overbearing socially. Like, you know, like I want to play. Let's play. Right? But other dogs, even other playful dogs and highly sociable dogs are like, what the fuck? I'm just going to put my hands where she can see them and back away slowly. Just is so overbearing. So that's her set of particular issues.
Okay, thank you for that, Karen.
We're working on them. So there you go.
Thank you for the update on the dog.
Okay. So back to the article.
Actually, wait. Joey Jojo put a chat.
Oh, Joey Jojo.
Super chat in.
Okay.
I want to thank you, ladies, for everything you have done to help me and men like me. I was on death's door just a month ago. Thanks, Badgers and Prim. No problem, Joey. And I'm glad that you've seen a significant turnaround in your experiences overall.
Yeah, so, I think we're all glad you're doing better.
Yeah, we are very happy for you. We've been worried, and we're glad to see that you have come out of it ahead, as it were. Okay, so continue, Hannah.
Okay,
and
so
maybe we should get you to read it rather than Karen, so we don't have to.
Yeah. No.
More commentary.
Well, we
the
have,
dog is.
The dog is silent now. Is the dog? The dog is good. Is the dog's?
Yeah,
the dog's commentary is over.
I put a ball gagger in her mouth and trust her up.
We are going to get dozens
People are going to take
comments.
that seriously.
They abuse their dog. They abuse the dog.
Yeah. No.
Oh my gosh. Okay, because otherwise I have the post open now on my other computer. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I can continue reading. Okay. So carrying on. It is a comfort to know that indeed not all women are like that. And even better, some of you stand up and say something, and damn it, they are quite often good some things to say. And in no small measure is it precisely because you are not men, your unique perspective as regards men's issues, being fully aware of them, on men being outside observation. This is most definitely not to disregard or diminish in any way your viewpoints, but rather a recognition of the value of those outside viewpoints in realizing what is going on. As an example, it never occurred to me the level to which feminism infantilized women until I read an article criticizing same. So allow me to attempt to return the favor. Going very far back in the dark age of the MRM, there was an influx of women asking what women are supposed to do. Essentially, these women asked for a belief system, a label they could attach to themselves, that would embody their belief in equality without demonizing men. Some of these women stuck around and proudly called themselves MRAs. More of them stuck around but balked at calling themselves MRAs. And a lot of newcomer women tend to see a lot of unmasked anger and get scared off, which of course leads to calls for moderation, which isn't going to happen. This cycle has endlessly repeated for decades, seemingly every week on Our Men's Rights. You can see the dilemma. Then I noticed a new subreddit called Lady MRAs. It's a small but growing group. And when I look at the writings and videos of the higher profile female MRAs, there's one thing that strikes me as a common denominator. These women are, tends to be.
Okay,
there
stop
is
for
a growing
second.
body of work.
I'm getting robo from Karen
Yes?
now. You're going robo on me.
She sounds fine for me. I think
Yes,
it's
but what she sounds like for me is what goes through the stream.
Ooh, good
So
point.
that's why I wanted her to stop for a
Uh-oh.
minute. So, start at,
Okay.
then I noticed a new subreddit.
Okay. Then I noticed a new subreddit called Lady MRAs. It's a small but growing group that I wish every success for, and when I look at the writings and videos of the higher profile female MRAs, there's one thing that strikes me as a common denominator. These women
Okay, interference
as women
confirmed.
self-aware and empathetic work that views men.
Stop. It's doing it again.
Oh dear.
It stopped.
Oh,
It
no.
didn't let you read. Or it didn't. It stopped at these women aren't what feminism
Okay,
pretends to
somebody.
be. So I'm gonna read it, and we'll
Yeah,
hopefully.
Okay,
Hannah,
so
just take it away.
somebody else pick it up. Yeah.
Yep. These women are what feminism pretends to be. There is a growing body of work from these women, self-aware and empathetic work that views men as partners, not competitors, that deserves to be recognized for what it is, a replacement ideology for feminism. Well, okay, not so much an ideology as a label to attach to basically acting like an adult or owning your shit. And there's the tribute to Karen. But you get my meaning. What you are doing is piggybacking on the MRM to formulate a new understanding for women. An answer to, what do you want me to be? For the record, piggyback away. I would view it as a personal favor for all men if you would consider a humble request, though. When the MRM was a few hundred guys grumbling away on discussion boards, we never got around to finding a catchy name. This means we have to describe ourselves with an acronym with which most people are unfamiliar. In hindsight, I think that was a mistake on our part. So, could you
Okay.
guys... Can you guys hear me?
Okay. Hannah?
All right, you guys can't hear me, but the stream can because OBS
United.
is
Yeah. Okay. So maybe get Allison to read the from
But
a
the thing is
replacement
that-
ideology
okay.
for feminism
Stop.
onward.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Okay.
you, but the thing is
Everybody
that
else
you're
can.
going
Okay, no, stop. Listen. Everybody listening to the stream could hear me.
Okay.
You
All right.
when you guys couldn't hear me, so everyone sounded so all you guys did was interrupt. That's why I wanted to continue reading it. I can see on OBS that it's showing my microphone working properly. So yeah, it's the problem is apparently some sort of conflict, I should say, I guess, between a Voice for Men's website and Discord. So in any case, going on. Where was I? Well, okay, I'll start back with when the MRM was a few hundred guys grumbling away on discussion boards, we never got around to finding a catchy name. This means we have to describe ourselves with an acronym with which most people are unfamiliar. In hindsight, I think that was a mistake on our part. So could you guys think up a cool name for yourselves? Because here's the kicker. You are forming the basis of a future belief system. You are laying the foundation for increased harmony between the sexes. You are the bridge between men and women. And what you write now may indeed show up in the textbooks of the future. If you ask me, that responsibility couldn't be in better hands. Okay, so were you guys able to hear the end of that?
So
Okay.
we're all
now
having
close,
Don't try to all talk at once because that
close
ruins it.
that window.
I think actually it's just the continuing screw.
Okay, you're robo.
And
Hold on.
I have a page. Perhaps you.
Okay, so for those listening, my co-hosts cannot hear me,
But
so they have
Cool.
no
So
idea
it's
that
all
they are
good.
going robo.
yeah, but she's.
So they have no idea that I can't hear them or that you can't hear them. That's basically what's going on now. And this is all specifically related to issues between apparently WordPress and Discord. because everything that I hear seems to go out on the thing just fine, which is great.
Unless you close the article.
All right, now I'm trying to figure out how to... I can't copy the links without going to the tab. So you guys are going to have to wait for a minute for me to close things while I open these links.
Okay.
Because there are some comments that we are going to discuss. And let's see, we can close that one.
We're not gonna discuss it unless you close all of the Voice for Men.
Yeah, I know, but I can't copy them and put them in the chat.
Now that we can actually talk.
Unless I can't copy them and put them in the chat unless I go to the tabs and copy the links on the tabs. So you're going to have to wait a minute and just let me do what I got to do. All right. So there's two here that are the important ones. And then I am going to display something else entirely. There.
Okay, lots of
now, the second one is actually the first one in our chat. So if you guys want to open that, I can read it off as soon as it loads up on this computer. But basically, in response to Dan's request, to Factory's request, Dr. Tara J. Pomatier commented, how about honey badgers? And then she later went on this, the comment was, according to the Urban Dictionary, 1, a honey badger is one fearless motherfucker. She is the ultimate badass of the animal kingdom. No one knows what they look like, and so on. She went through and quoted the entire Urban Dictionary, the entire Urban Dictionary definition, which was, of course, full of... It was a meme full of memes. So then she goes on to say that overall she likes it. And below that, Dan commented back that honey badgers are actually pretty badass. Then again, nearly all badgers are vicious motherfuckers. But honey badgers make everything else look like a total pussy. And that was where the name was first proposed for, generally speaking, women in the movement who don't flake out when they hear about men's issues, and when they hear men discussing men's issues without catering to women's sensibilities. Allison, I don't know if you want to read your reply, which is the other link that I put in there. It should be the first link. But
if I can find it, I will.
Okay. It's in the live show chat.
You know, I know where it is.
Okay, so if you click on it, it should open up directly to your comment and not just the page itself.
And that's the problem that I'm finding.
Well, here, I'll just post the comment directly in the.
That's
the
what
live
I
show
did.
Channel.
That's what I did.
No, I just meant like the actual text.
Okay, the text directly. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm still just looking. Oh, here we go. If you're talking about this one, I added Dan and I said, I like honey badgers, but if you want a contender for position... are you talking about that comment?
That's the right one. Yeah, that's the right one.
Okay. I put out the Compassion for Men movement for your consideration. I think it's concise in that it exactly exemplifies what men's rights activists are fighting for, and the absence of it in society is what underlies every issue men face. Further, it's a good position statement in that it forces everyone against the movement to explain why they're against Compassion for Men. It puts them on their back foot right before they even engage our arguments. Oh, and thanks for the article. It really has been a long time, hasn't it? That was 6 years ago when I wrote that post.
6 years ago would have been a long time.
Yeah, that was 7 years after I had first met Dan. And then Dan Moore replies, oh, and since I keep forgetting how long ago this all started, I'd like to state for the record that my very first MRA BBS that I attended, Typhon was already a member, and that had to be close to 15 years ago. Maybe it was like 15, so it's been like 21 years for me.
Yep.
Yes, sock.men. This is me replying to Factory. It's probably still has my evolution from purple pill to red pill all archived there. And it's nice to see the stuff I was talking about on Stand Your Ground so long ago being realized on here on AVFM. Almost 15 years. Has it really been that long? It's so funny listening to you newcomers talk about the men's rights movement not going anywhere, when old timers like you and me have seen its evolution from forums and BBSs to maybe 150 or 1,500 members to a subreddit forum that gains 1,500 members a month. Not to mention successful websites like A Voice for Men.
Yeah. Now, if you look at, let me see if I can find. The men's rights subreddit actually has a huge number of subscribers now. Mm-hmm. So let's see here.
And Karen has a huge number of subscribers now. She's rocketing up to 200,000.
Yeah, pretty close.
It's an amazing number of subscribers. The men's rights subreddit is now at 176,272 readers. For comparison, when I first started posting to that subreddit, after I found it, when I was looking for places to share the information I had learned from the vexatious litigant case, the 7 Years in Hell case, there were less than 3,000 members. They celebrated their 3,000th member in between when I posted the first time and when I posted the second time. Like the second time I posted, it was, let's see, if it was either between the second and third times I posted, or between the first and second times I posted, was after I had lost internet access for a while due to, well, not being able to pay for it, actually. So I didn't have any access to the internet unless I went to the public library, which I didn't have time to do because I had 3 jobs and not enough money to pay for internet service. During that time, during one of those 2 breaks, the men's rights subreddit actually got removed, got suspended by Reddit's moderators, and there was this big argument, or it got threatened with suspension, and there was this big argument over why there should be allowed to be a men's rights subreddit. And because I remember posting in that argument regarding whether there should be a men's rights subreddit or not, that it was ridiculous for there to be. I think there were, at that time, I think I found 5 or 6 subreddits that were explicitly feminist, or that had feminist in their description, and there weren't even any subreddits that had men's issues in their description. So there you go. But yeah, so the men's rights subreddit has grown from its beginnings to actually, 176,272 readers. And apparently 396 of them are there right now, because that's a live page. But
yep. So it's been like, it's the thing is that if you've been following this for as long as I have, you see the growth. And the growth isn't like enormous, but it's not something I expect to be enormous, because we're challenging something really fundamental to how society is organized and how society is motivated. But I'm going to read Dan Moore Factory's response to me. I really like where you're headed with that, namely the name Compassion for Men movement. But frankly, I see something developing I'm not convinced even you see right now. Every article on sexual relations or social expectations or gender roles of both sexes, or critical of female misbehavior, or any of the articles directed at women with a truly balanced and aware viewpoint, all of that forms the basis of a code of ethics for women of a sort. A way to understand men better and themselves better, and more importantly, the permission to admit gender differences are not only fact, but normal and okay. By trying to explain men's issues from a female perspective to females, you founded a new thing, one worthy of protection and nurturing, the female equivalent to Zeta masculinity. So be proud of your accomplishment, all of you, and continue to build on that framework, but with a cool name. Wow, I can't believe that. Actually, because it's what's so funny about all of this is when Factory was proposing this, and the reason why he kept sort of talking to me about this is because I really didn't like the idea of giving female men's rights activists a separate identity from male men's rights activists.
And you're the one that gets the most criticism over it, even though you didn't want to do it.
Yeah, I didn't actually want to do that. I thought Tara's name was great. I believe I have an additional comment here. I'm not sure if I'll be able to find it very easily, but essentially what I was saying is I said, yeah, that's a cool idea, but why do we need our own name? And Factory was sort of responding to me continually because I was like, well, if you want to propose, if you want another name, well, for the men's rights movement, fair enough, but why did the female men's rights activists need their own name? And he kept trying to encourage me to see what he was seeing. And to be honest, looking back, I can see what he was talking about now. At the time, I just didn't get it. So it's interesting how actually Factory, of all the people involved in this, is probably one of the main reasons why Honey Badger Radio exists at all, because of what he was trying to point out for me.
Yeah. No, he was essentially saying, you know, like you actually have to differentiate yourself, you know, brand yourself in a certain way. I mean, like how did Trump win the election? Through branding. He branded Jeb Bush as low energy. He branded, you know, Mark Rubio as little Mark Rubio. You know, he branded Hillary as oh God, what was it? You know, what did
Trump?
he call her?
Trump branded Crooked Hillary. Crooked Hillary.
Crooked Hillary.
Crooked Hillary. Crooked Hillary.
Right? Like he branded everybody. You know, and that's, you know, those labels, they stuck, right? And so when you like taking on a label, it can be really negative or it can be really positive. You know, in terms of the outcomes from taking that on. And I think that Factory probably understood that female MRAs, you know, at least the ones that are like actually, I guess, red-pilled rather than purple, you know, even just like when I'm looking at that subreddit, Lady MRAs, and I'm thinking of the term lady, and I'm thinking, do ladies get their hands dirty? No. Do ladies get down on their knees without, you know, knee pads and like, you know, get the imprints of dirt and pebbles and sand and grit in their knees because they're doing work? No, they don't, right? Ladies are above it all. Ladies are the ones who expect the man to put his, you know, coat over top of the puddles so that their shoes don't have to get wet. That's what ladies do. That's what ladies expect. They expect a chair pulled out for them. They expect the doors to be opened for them. They expect to be revered in certain ways. That's what ladies are, right? And, you know, if we're going to leave the gender roles behind, then, you know, like we're supposed to leave the rewards you know, that came with being a lady. We're supposed to leave those behind too, right? We're supposed to get our hands dirty. We're supposed to break nails and you know, get down on our hands and knees and grub in the dirt and, you know, pull weeds and all of that shit, right? And one of the things that really struck me, right, in my first sort of contact with the men's issues movement, right? Like the first contact that I had, where I cut my teeth, which was on the Spearhead, and back when it was like way more hardcore than A Voice for Men, was an article written by Jack Donovan called "In Praise of Country Women," and he was literally describing the, you know, how he used to work as somebody who delivered fitness equipment to people's homes. So treadmills and Bowflexes and things like that. And he said that he would go, you know, when he delivered stuff like this to an apartment in an urban area, the women just essentially let him do all of the everything himself. And they didn't even watch him put the stuff together because, you know, they knew that if it ever broke or something like that, they would just call and somebody would come and fix it for them, right? But country women, women who lived on farms, women who lived in rural areas, they actually helped him carry the stuff from the vehicle into the house. They helped him put it together. They were interested in seeing how it went together. They were interested in figuring out, you know, how can I fix this myself if it starts to go wonky, right? They were interested in all those things. And so, I mean, like when you're looking at even these sort of hardcore, and the Spearhead wasn't a men's rights website per se, it was more of a masculinist website, or a red, it was more similar to the Reddit or the Red Pill. But even on that website, it was like what we want, and this is something that Dan put in his post here, right? We want the women that feminism promised but didn't deliver, right? And it seems like, because my grandmother was that woman. My grandmother was absolutely that woman. My mother was that woman. My mother was like in rubber boots and a bikini screeding concrete with my dad. You know, like that's what she did. Do you think any of these feminists out there, you know, do you think Amanda Marcotte knows how to change her own tire?
I think if Amanda Marcotte changed her own tire, she'd be wanting kudos for it from everybody.
Probably.
Well, it's just like, but, you know, like, yeah, she'd be wanting, but she would never do it because, like, why would she do it? She can call somebody for that. And so it's like the men in the men's rights movement are actually, they seem to be yearning not back towards some kind of June Cleaver ideal of a woman in pearls and a house dress vacuuming, right, and making TV dinners, right? That's not what they want. They want a competent partner, right, who can actually act as their assistant or even take the lead when they're laid up, in terms of all of those masculine roles, right? A woman who's willing to clean the gutters, a woman who's willing to, you know, get her hands dirty. Like this seems to be what a lot of these guys are yearning for. And feminism seems to have essentially told women that you don't have to do any of that, right? You like this is all stuff that you should be outsourcing to men.
Yeah,
and
go ahead,
before
Allison.
I go, because I am going to have to take off here soon. I just wanted to get into that. And yeah, Factory was talking about that what we are doing here, specifically on Honey Badger Radio, is creating the kind of woman that feminism promised but never delivered. You know, a woman who it recognizes her agency, and not in a bitchy way, or maybe you know, occasionally bitchy, but not like an eternally, not in a way that constantly seeks to never be responsible for anyone or anything aside from her own interests, and constantly seeks to deflect blame onto other people. So a woman who can take responsibility for the effects of the consequences of her action, who doesn't have to expect her partner to constantly tiptoe around her emotional landscape, and maybe spends a little bit of time considering his. Somebody who you can rely on, somebody who can be a shoulder to lean on when you need it, that kind of thing. And when I reread what Factory had to say about what he was trying to get at, he's trying to get at the idea that women need a movement that isn't like feminism. It isn't about constantly reducing women down to victims, because feminism does that eternally. I mean, a couple weeks ago, I read on a stream with Teal Deer, I read a whole bunch of things that feminism reduces women down to victims of. Like academic feminism has proposed women are victims of. Women are victims of pop quizzes. Women are victims of sperm banks. Women are victims of meritocracy. Women are victims of physics. Like everything in academia is about making women victims of new things, discovering new forms of female victimhood. That isn't an empowering movement. It's a disempowering movement. It's a movement that completely removes a woman's ability to recognize the effects and consequences of her own actions in the greater world. It turns her into an infant that's constantly coddled by society, being constantly saved by men. And what he was pointing out is that recognizing women's effect on men is recognizing women's agency, recognizing women's power in the world. And what women really need right now is a movement that recognizes all of that and creates a sense of responsibility to men in society. And by creating that sense of responsibility to men in society, develops women's sense of self and sense of not just a sense of self, a sense of autonomy, a sense of purpose, and a sense of power. And that's what he was talking about. And it's
like Factory. It's like Factory was preaching the Jordan Peterson thing, but to women. But I mean, Jordan Peterson preaches it to both sexes. It's just men who see any value in the message.
Well, what's really sad is before feminism, most women had those things. And honestly, it manifested differently depending on what class, financial class you were part of. Poor women, their exercise of accountability and responsibility was as much as they were physically capable of doing. They worked like men. And women who were middle class did everything they could to support their families and their husbands. And it didn't necessarily always end up being financial support, because in the middle class you don't necessarily need two incomes, or at least you didn't used to. And of course, wealthy women, there are a lot of wealthy women that actually did things like engaging in activism on behalf of groups of people who were in need. Women who went out and fought for better conditions in prisons, women who went out and fought for better conditions in hospitals, women who discovered that it might be better if there was an education system instead of individual schools, women who became school teachers, and so on. And so there were different groups of women that if the woman was accountable as a human being as opposed to an unaccountable person, and there were unaccountable people of both sexes, but if the woman was an accountable person, that was the way she lived her life. And along came feminism and gave a lot of women a lot of excuses to abandon accountability. And that's what has led to basically this discussion. But I don't think Allison was finished, so I don't know if you want to continue, Allison.
Well, okay. I mean, I am going to be going, so Karen, you can continue to talk after I'm gone, about anything that I say at this moment. So, essentially what I wanted to say, so Factory posited this whole idea, and at the time I pretty much rejected it. I was like, no, this is wrong. I don't think this is necessary. Women don't need their own movement, Factory. But having thought about it and really considered what he was saying, I realized that he might have a point. So that was all in the back of my mind as I was starting to develop the idea for Honey Badger Radio. Factory's ideas about how women needed something better than feminism. Because let's be frank, we need something better than feminism. Feminism is a horrible way to live. It's a horrible way to live. When women talk about, when we encounter the women who say things like not all women do that, I honestly think that these women are in a situation where their sense of self is retarded. Like it's not been fully developed. So they don't realize that when we say women engage in false accusations, they immediately think that they have to do it too. Whereas when I hear that, for example, when MGTOWs say that this is women's essential nature, I think challenge accepted. Oh, you think if you believe that's women's essential nature, then I am going to defy that expectation through my individual effort. That's what I think whenever I hear criticism of women as a group. Like I accept that criticism and I am going to defy it through my individual effort, through my choices and my actions. And I think that feminism really has retarded a woman's development into an individual who takes her identity from the consequences of her actions and her decisions about what she's going to be morally, as opposed to just what people say about women. And that's what's so funny about this. It's like there's one of the main differences, I think, between women who are drawn to a message like Honey Badger Radio, who are drawn to a message of the men's rights movement, and women who are not. The purple pill versus red pill versus blue pill that Hannah was talking about is that some women can see their identity as a result of their personal choices and their moral choices as an individual. And when people say women are, they don't internalize it. Even if women are bad or women are good, they don't internalize either. Because as far as they're concerned, they are predominantly defined by their choices and their moral decisions. They're predominantly defined by those individual aspects of their being. They're not defined by other people's opinions on what women are or are not, which is another reason why I think that a lot of people who are women who are prone to this kind of message, who like this kind of message, really reject the whole blowing smoke up your ass, glitter in your face of women are wonderful, women are moral, women are that just makes my skin crawl. I'm like, no, that isn't a property of any aspect of my biology as a woman. It's a property of my choices as a moral agent. And you're not going to take that away from me because it denies my individuality. And I think that may be one of the big demarcations between women who really get the message of men's rights, who understand it as a system, as an expectation, as a standard of responsibility that as an individual, they are pleased to hold themselves to, because it helps develop that sense of individuality and individual moral agency. And women who are still stuck in this idea that they're primarily defined by being women, primarily defined by people's opinions of women, either bad or good, and essentially live out their lives trying to control the opinions that people have of womanhood. And so it took me a while to really get what Factory was trying to tell me. But, and that was in 2012, the Factory was talking to me about this. It took till 2013 till I really understood it and really wanted to start putting it into practice. And that's where I started to develop the idea of Honey Badger Radio and being a little bit less rejecting of the idea of defining female men's rights activists as honey badgers. And I'll leave it at that, because I believe that Karen and Hannah will have plenty to talk about when they start going over Karen's post. And thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Karen. And feel free to go ahead now, Karen, if there's anything you want to say.
No. I think you said it.
Yeah, I think that was excellent. Probably ought to we probably ought to isolate that as its own
sound bite.
Yeah, and this is something that just growing up where I grew up. Like, I grew up in a very small town in a county of all small towns. There's not a big city in the county, or even a big city that part of that big city is in part of the county where I grew up. I grew up in Auglaize County, Ohio, and it's the most active area in my county, I think, is around Lake St. Mary's. There's that lake borders or not borders, but straddles Auglaize and Mercer counties, and that whole area is pretty much as Allison described, the way women should be. And the reason that it is because it's a smaller area. That division between country mouse and city mouse it really hits home. One of the things that I noticed when I moved to Dayton was the difference in the women here versus the women there. I worked with women in my hometown and in my home county that there wasn't a task. If a man was doing that task, there wasn't a task that they would be like, well, that's men's work, we don't have to do it. If they were working in a retail establishment and there was a clogged toilet, they didn't send a guy in to deal with it. They just dealt with it. You know, if they were working in an area where there was heavy work to do, there was no expectation that the women didn't have to do those jobs. And I moved to the city, and the first thing that I remember happening at my job in Dayton, my first job in Dayton, was, offhand anyway, the first thing I remember happening was anytime anything had to be, we had a shed for supplies, and anytime anything had to be fetched from the shed, if there was a guy on the job at the time, he got sent out to get stuff out of the shed by the gals, including the female manager. And this was a pretty butch female manager for a city girl. And it was kind of funny because it wasn't even necessarily that the stuff in the shed was heavy. It was just a task. And yeah, Michael, I am at Dayton, Ohio, or as the locals will say, Ahia. I grew up in Ohio, but now I live in Ahia for the Jeff Foxworthy fans. But yeah, it was quite a difference there. And then I think probably the dumbest was the day that the cashiers at the gas station I worked at were going to leave the men's restroom clogged for an entire weekend. Well, not clogged, it was covered in puke, that's what it was. And for the entire weekend, because they didn't want to go clean it up. They were going to leave it for an entire weekend because the first time a guy was going to be working was Monday. So on Friday, someone barfed in the restroom, and that was on, you know, Friday night. Saturday morning I come in and there's dried barf in the restroom, and it's out of order. It's listed as out of order, and I'm asking what's wrong with it, and the gals tell me, and I ended up, you know, suiting up and going in and cleaning it up before going into the kitchen and cooking. You know, then they made fun of me for putting on the universal precautions garb to go do it, and I'm like, I'm gonna cook for people to eat food that I cooked. I'm putting on the universal precautions garb before I go in here and mess with the vomit. But yeah, this was like, these sensibilities were alien. Now, it's not that there weren't ladylike gals where I came from. And it's not like there weren't some gals that were more ladylike and some that were less ladylike. But the sensibilities that were exhibited in gas station employees, no less, that were female when I first started working in the Dayton metro area, would have been ridiculed, like just ridiculed out of the store by the gals that I grew up with. Even the wimpy ones, even the ones from the, you know, side of town that had more money and where all the kids were in organized sports and other activities, and they settled fights by, you know, yelling, "You can't come in my yard," and stuff like that. Even those kids would have ridiculed these chicks out of the store. And it was just such a dramatic difference. And I guess part of it was, I was raised by a woman, okay, who was at 5'5", as the tallest she's ever been, and at the time 120 pounds. She could pick up and throw bales of hay. She'd been doing farm work all of her life. She grew up on a farm. She was raised on a farm. And this idea of, I can't do that because I'm a girl. Girls shouldn't have to do that. Girls shouldn't have to deal with that. When it comes to work, when it comes to shit needing to get done, it's just been alien to me all of my life. And I guess that's partly why I was able to identify with this aspect of the men's rights movement.
Well, I mean, like one of the things that always got me was, you know, women with these like extremely long fingernails, right? Manicured fingernails. And it's like, how on earth, like, I find that if I let my nails, you know, because I get them down to like lesbian ready on a regular basis, right? Which means like almost nothing. You know, because if you go into a lesbian bar and you have long freaking, you have 3-inch swords coming out your fingertips, right? They're gonna like look at you and go like, yeah, no, that's just an invitation to like fucking a tetanus shot. But essentially, like I file them down all the time, and they grow very, very quickly. And I can't even fucking type. Like it's essentially when I start to actually get typos because my fingernails fuck up my typing. I'm like, oh fuck, the white part of my fingernails are like it's like 3 millimeters. That's like way too long. But it's oh, stop it, Allison. My nails will not take up the next 10 minutes. But it's like it really is this sort of there is this sort of decorative aspect to a lot of women these days where like they'll straighten their hair, they'll do their nails, and I don't mind that. I really don't, right? Like I'm fine if you want to look attractive and you have the opportunity to do that. But the idea that you're tough, you're a strong, independent woman who spends 3 hours doing her hair and nails and makeup every day, and putting on clothes that you wouldn't be able to walk 2 miles home if your car broke down. That's really not reflecting being a strong, independent woman. And and it's so infuriating to me because we look at, like, society looks at earning power and they say men obviously have more earning power because they earn more money, and nobody looks at spending power. Nobody looks at who is the leisure class. As far as I'm concerned, the woman who stays at home or works part-time while her husband works more than full-time and supports the family, she's the fucking leisure class. And almost always that's by her choice, not his. So, like, I don't know that there is any relationship where a man could legally get away with saying to his wife, there's no way in hell that you're going to go out and work these days. Like, that would be considered abuse. That would be considered domestic violence. That would be considered abusive and controlling behavior. If he said, there's absolutely no way any wife of mine is going to work and earn income, like, that would be abusive. And yet we have women who do that, or who kind of scale back their work in the paid workforce, and somehow we're supposed to see that as not women's choices. Like, I don't fucking understand. And yet women have actually more spending power than men do.
It's always the solution is always women are victims and they have no agency over their lives. That's always the solution, Karen. And I just wanted to make one final statement about all of this and about what Factory said in terms of female men's rights activists developing this code of ethics or code of responsibility. And my opinion that's something that many women are drawn to, and that we need a movement of creating that kind of a code of ethics and responsibility for women, so they get away from, which is what's really interesting about all this, they get away from defining themselves by people's opinions of them. And I know that sounds almost self-contradictory, but it isn't. When you create a code of ethics and a sense of responsibility, you are emphasizing an individual's moral agency, so that it becomes a meritocracy in which different women attain different levels of moral responsibility and morality. That's emphasizing the individuality of women and getting away from this idea of being totally defined as a woman by the opinions of others. So when somebody says all women are bad, you're like, oh my God, you're talking about me. No. Or all women are good. Oh, that's so wonderful. I feel so flattered. No, that's other people's opinions of women as a group. And I deny that. I deny the legitimacy of that. I say that women are individuals and are defined by their individual actions. That all people who say women are all bad or women are all good that's nonsense. You're welcome to your opinion about what all women are. But I don't think that I think that women need to realize that that opinion is just an opinion, and that their true worth, their true integrity is in what they decide to take responsibility for, and how they decide to act in a moral and just way. That's what defines them, and they can only be defined in that way individually. And that's the kind of thing that I realized that Factory was talking about, and it started to percolate in my mind during 2012, 2013. And the other thing I realized is that women, if this is going to be a message that's really resonating, it will have to come from more than just women. It'll have to come from a group of women working together to establish this kind of a sense of responsibility. Because let's face it, groups of women have a lot of power. They have power not just for being women, but for it's like a force multiplier. So that's why I approached Karen, and that's why I approached Hannon, because I knew that a group of women would be a force multiplier when it comes to this kind of a message, and we would be able to break through this idea that it's all about the misogynies, or at least maybe not break through it, but it'll just bounce right off us. And the other thing is, I had a sense that women who resonate with this kind of message would actually be able to work together in a way that a lot of women are not able to. And, knock on wood, seems to work so far, except, Karen wants to talk about her nails for like 20 minutes.
Excuse me, that was not 20 minutes, and fuck you. All right.
Anyway, so that was my thinking, and I really need to thank Dan Moore and Factory for really getting me on this line of thinking, and of course Tara for throwing out the meme of the day to sort of describe the idea that Dan was putting out there. So thank you, Tara. Thank you, Dan. You're awesome. Peace out. Good night.
Okay. I just kind of wanted to speak to that. Maybe in a second here. Just things got really loud there for a moment.
In a second.
Now we're good. Now we're good. Okay, but yeah, basically just because a lot of what Allison was talking about just now and before, it really speaks to my experiences kind of getting into the movement. And I'll give the cliff notes because I know that we have a lot to go over here. But basically, I started to recognize that feminism was not describing my experiences at all when I was starting to get into my first degree. And I started to get into the men's rights movement, I believe, as I said, because somebody mentioned, oh, look at these misogynists. So I'm like, okay, let's go see what that's all about. And it wasn't true. And then I also learned about the Red Pill subreddit, which was where I started to hear the all women are like that kind of thing. So admittedly, when I first started out with all of this, that was something that I got hung up on because I was like, well, these feminists, they make these stupid generalizations about men all the time. They say, yes, all men are terrible people and they need to be constrained. So I'm like, well, these people are just doing the exact same opposite as what feminists are doing. They're saying, oh yes, all women are terrible things. And I mean, realistically, that is not, it's not what they're really intending by that statement. What I have kind of grown to see over the years was that they were saying, this is a general trend in society, like, what a lot of women unfortunately have the ability to screw over a man's life, and they are enabled by society to do that. And then I realized, much like Allison did, it doesn't really matter if these guys say all women are like that, because my way of coming around to it was like, well, I'm not like that. So clearly this statement doesn't apply to me. I'm not going to use the law to abuse people. I'm going to fight for men's equality. I'm going to fight when I see people being unfairly rude to men or being dismissive of men's needs or saying, oh, well, yeah, well, it doesn't really matter because men have all the power. I just said, no, I'm just not gonna fall for that. And then, these statements about all women are like that, it just rolls off my back. I don't care because I will work to be my own person. And then in the end, I kind of came around to it in perhaps a slightly different path, but a similar kind of attitude as Alice. It's just, no, I'm going to be my own person. I'm going to do things that make me proud of who I am, that can help people that I see that are hurting, that need help. And that's the most important thing. Who gives a crap about whether people who are angry need to express that anger in a way that they deem fit? That was basically how it came around for me. And just one more brief funny story. One of my first posts, if not the first post I ever made in the men's rights subreddit, Allison was the person who responded to me. So even though I didn't know it back then, she was my first experience in learning about men's rights as well. So just thought that was kind of a bit of interesting, my own personal history.
Well, that's kind of neat, especially getting to, you having gotten to connect with Allison and not realizing until now.
Yeah.
But
well, I had a totally different username and everything then, so it's not like she would have probably even been at all aware that she was talking to me at any point in there either. So
yeah, that's one of the things about Reddit. I mean, I've been through 4 usernames, 5 incarnations, because I didn't understand Reddit's shadow ban. Actually, nobody understood Reddit's shadow ban the second time I was shadow banned, and they basically just said, there's something wrong with your account. Just make a new account, because the moderators didn't know what the shadow ban was and why my account was coming up the way it was coming up. So I made a new account and gave it the same name, and of course it was immediately shadow banned. So my third shadow ban was because I didn't understand why my second account, my first and second account, were shadow banned for talking about a particular case, and that case and the victim's response to what was being done to him. Those were the reasons, part of the reasons anyway, that I was able to go into both the men's rights subreddit and occasionally the red pill subreddit, although I was only a lurker in there, and not take anything personally in terms of complaints, because I kind of watched some of the worst behavior. I didn't even. You guys have to read the 7 Years in Hell story if you haven't read it already. That's the abbreviated version. There were just things that happened in that case that so totally blew my mind that it made it impossible for me to fall into the trap of taking anything said about women as a generalization to mean all women. It just meant, hey, there are women that behave this way, and women can get away with it. And when you see one drag somebody through the bowels of the criminal and family court systems, and you see a woman repeatedly lie and get away with it in court, when you see her repeatedly do things like actually stalking the other side's witnesses and making illegal demands in the court case and getting away with it, and you see her engaging in outright childish behavior, like literally throwing herself around like a 2-year-old having a temper tantrum in the courtroom in front of the judge, and not get held in contempt, and then you can't go into a subreddit where there's discussion like that about women behaving that way and say, well, this is offensive because you're part of that discussion.
No. I just wanted to add one. I just wanted to add one really quick note there, just because Hannah touched on something that just made me come to kind of a realization. Because when people in the red pill, for example, say all women are like that, they're not actually really saying that. It's just kind of a generalization. But like when women say like hashtag yes all men, it kind of feels like a lot of the times they're actively finding these completely benign behaviors and they're trying to twist them into something terrible to fit a narrative that men are dangerous creatures.
Yeah, well, the hashtag yes all men is actually intended to say that men who do not stop or control other men's behavior that upsets women whether it is actually as bad as rape, or minor things that women don't like that upset women's sensibilities, they're all responsible for the worst behavior that the worst, most unaccountable men engage in. But at the same time, they don't want women held to that same standard. They don't want women held to the standard that all women are responsible for false accusers, for instance. For us who
they don't even want to admit that false accusers exist.
Well, no kidding.
Right?
But when feminists that I see post stuff like this, like I just had somebody unironically post on Facebook a thing that included as its first bullet point, "Are you aware that men," in italics, "are responsible for at least 90% of the evils and suffering in the world that are not caused by natural disasters?" And I'm like,
yeah.
Are you
Did she just call women natural disasters?
Oh, no. But I mean, like, what's really frustrating, right, is that, it completely ignores women's role in terms of contributing to certain problems, right? So, like who is the majority consumer, right, of not just of consumer products, but of government spending? Well, that would be women. Women are the ones who spend the most money, and then they blame men for the way that men either earn the money that women spend or produce the products that women want to buy with the money that men earn, right? And it's like they completely ignore the role of women in all of this, right? Women, again, I'm going to bring up that New Zealand report that showed that when they brought up that, when they set it up like, okay, so if everything stays the same from 2014 to 2094, okay, if everything stays exactly the same and we're going to like look at the tax impact, right? Benefits pulled out, taxes put in, right? Cumulatively over a lifetime, an 80-year lifetime, we find that women never get above negative $50,000 or negative $45,000 in their overdraft of tax benefits pulled versus taxes put in. Only men between 40 and 80, 40 and 79 actually contribute to the tax base. That's the only group that actually puts more taxes in than they personally pull out, right? And by the time a woman is 80 years old, she's spent $150,000 more than she's put in, by that point. And so, like, you want to look at degradation of the environment, depletion of resources, right? The kind of shit that goes on in African countries because they have magnesium and other minerals that people use in cell phones and computers and stuff like that, right? You want to look at that? Well, maybe look at women's consumption rate. Maybe look at the amount of money women spend on consumer products. And if you want to talk about government debt, maybe look at how much more money women take out of the system than they put in. Because by the time they're 80, they've taken out $150,000 more than they've put in. So I'm sorry. And men's net physical impact at age 80 is zero to the tax base, to the tax system, right? They've paid for themselves. Men have paid for themselves. And okay, so where are we going with this, right? We're putting $150,000 of debt on women's progeny. Right?
Yeah. And women are asking it to be bigger.
Every litter of fucking puppies a woman fucking squirts out, okay, gets to bear that $150,000 burden.
And women are demanding more. That's why they marched. That's why they marched
and
all over the United States in pussy hats.
The whole fucking thing with that, right? We need access to birth control. We need access to fucking to abortion. And it's like, no, when you talk about we need access, what you mean is we need free shit. Like I'm watching this fucking discussion with Helena something or other and Simon Baron Cohen, right? Who was on a channel called Zero Fox Given, which is a beautiful channel name, and I would suggest that anybody subscribe. But he posted this discussion, and there was a left-leaning guy, you know, so it's two evolutionary psychologists, right, talking about how, like, we can't even have a discussion of the glass ceiling or anything like that until we acknowledge certain evolutionary realities, right? Okay, and because there may be no discrimination going on, it may just be, you know, the differences between men and women and their psychology, their evolved psychology. So, okay, so we have the two sensible people. And then we have the guy who says VAT on tampons, like, you know, blah, blah, blah. So this is a reference to the tampon tax in Britain, okay, in the UK. The VAT, value-added tax. The tampon tax, the horrible, horrible, awful, no good, really bad tampon tax.
Oh no, it's like 28 cents.
No. Feminists are freaking out because tampons are classed, they're categorized under British, the government, the tax system there, right? They're classified as a luxury item, right? And so the VAT applied to them is 5%. And oh, the horror. The VAT on the tampon tax, you know, on the tampons is 5%. Oh my God, value-added tax it just refers to any kind of product that is subjected to any kind of manufacturing process, right? So anything that isn't a raw material is subjected to VAT. So essentially what you're looking at is, okay, so if you actually look into it, if you actually fucking look into it, and I'm going to get really fucking frustrated here, and I'm going to probably swear a lot. Okay. If you look into the whole thing with the tampons and VAT in the UK, what do you find? I don't know, a decade or two ago, feminists were pissed that tampons were categorized as necessities that are subjected to 20% value-added tax, just like toilet paper, just like cotton swabs, just like disposable diapers, just like toothpaste, just like shampoo, just like soap, just like dishwasher detergent, just like fucking anything that is a necessity, right? Anything that is considered a necessity is subjected under EU regulations to a 20% VAT. So the British government, thinking that they were actually going to appease these stupid cunts, right? Classified tampons as a luxury item because that gave them the legal leeway to change the tax rate on them to 5%. So literally you pay, women pay 20% VAT to wipe their asses. They pay 20% VAT to deal with their bladder control problems. They pay 20% VAT to diaper their children and keep their teeth from rotting out of their heads, right? But because tampons are classed as a luxury item, because feminists were pissed off at the 20%, and classifying them as a luxury item allowed the government to tax them at a mere 5%, the lowest amount possible under European Union regulations. They are pissed off that there is a luxury tampon tax that amounts to, wait for it, less than 2 fucking pounds a year for the average woman.
Yeah. I'm
then
sitting
they
here,
can't get their lattes.
I'm sitting here in Ohio with our sales tax, I think, being at 7% base. Some cities have a mill here or a mill there, so there's 7.5% here or 7.5% there. And hearing 20% sales tax going, on toilet paper, on anything at all. We would mutiny if there was a 20% tax on toilet paper. We would mutiny here. But I'm just blown away. Whatever we pay for toilet paper, though, whatever we pay for toilet paper, we're paying the same for tampons. I think. I don't know. I don't like them. there's a higher risk of infection with tampons and they're less safe than pads.
Not so, that. Okay, all female. Okay, the tampon tax is about all female sanitary items. Right. It's about maxi pads and tampons.
I was going to question that because if feminists singled out
5%.
Okay, Karen, we get it. But if feminists singled those out for its own thing, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yes,
and not just,
and then they're still complaining because there's any tax on them at all.
Not just in terms of what it is. Not just in terms of what it is.
Like, why if you don't want to be taxed,
it's not even
taxed. Okay, just if you don't want to be taxed on your feminine hygiene, go out in the woods, harvest moss, and shove it up your cooch. Okay, you stupid bitch, because you won't be taxed on that because it hasn't had any value added. It hasn't been subjected to a manufacturing process.
Yeah. We need to get these pink tax narrative promoters. We need to get them together with the free bleed movement promoters.
No kidding.
Think that sanitary napkins and so on were an imposition by men on female society because they don't know their history and they don't know that French nurses are the ones that actually got this started. But now that we're done talking about period shit,
God damn it!
You know what? What's hilarious about the free bleeding movement? That was started by 4chan.
I know it was a 4chan gag, and feminists actually fell for it. What's really sad though, what's even sadder than the fact that they fell for that, is the fact that the vaginal knitting thing was not a 4chan gag. That was a woman's art project that she did herself on purpose because feminism. She stuck a ball of yarn in her cooch and then knitted with it, whether she was on her period or not. And that was like, what?
She came up with a nice striped scarf.
Oh my God! And this was supposed to be activism. Now, see, with the pink tax, there's something else that needs to be put to rest. The pink tax isn't about tax. It started out about tax, and it was stupid, and then Karen described the way in which it was stupid. But feminists went on with this narrative. Once that was discredited, they went on with this narrative that, like everything else that feminists do, portrayed women as victims of their own choices. And that narrative was, women pay more for things that are specially made for women because they're specially made for women. But feminists talk about it as though women are paying more for things that are labeled for women, but exactly the same as things that are labeled for men. When you talk to them about this, however, if you bring up the idea that they could just buy the things that are labeled for men, they throw a hissy fit and say that the products are not the same. It's not the right color. It doesn't have, if it's the razor, it doesn't have the lotion strip or soap strip or whatever it is on it that women's razors have. It doesn't have the special grip that's made for a woman's hand or whatever, because you know, hands are different when you put them on a female body. And all of this stuff. It's not pink. Oh my God, how dare it not be pink? How dare it not be specially shaped? You know, and this is one that I'm not
going up to the cashier at the Walmart with my bottle of Head and Shoulders and they add like 13%.
No, exactly.
My bottle of Head and Shoulders.
No, if you bought something that had perfume in it and some kind of special oil in it that keeps long hair from sticking to itself and tying itself in knots, and
I desperately need
something that was dyed.
Really do.
Oh yeah, I know your hair is just getting out of control, Karen. If you bought something that was special color that only women want, and therefore they had to do a special run of it, and they had to pay the same guys for the same amount of time for less product, you would get charged more for it.
Well, you see, you guys kind of already solved the problem, because toilet paper is for both men and women, whereas you already called them stupid cunts. That's the entire way that they identify as human beings. So that's the only part that matters to them.
Well, there is that.
But look at it this way. Look at it this way. Okay, so women use toilet paper, okay, much more than men do.
True.
Okay, and therefore they should be taxed at a lower rate than men are for toilet paper, because they have to use it more often than men. Because women, I don't know about
women
the
are
men
full
in
of
the
shit.
audience
Oh,
and
no,
what
wait
they
a
know, and what they know about how women go about things. But usually, when women pee, they use toilet paper and wipe. Okay, and men don't have to do that, because men are evil patriarchal bastards who lord their ability to pee without wiping over the rest of us. Okay, so women should not have to pay as much tax on toilet paper. And also women are more prone to bladder control problems because women give birth, and that sometimes damages their perineum and the muscles that are used to hold in a pee. And so when they sneeze or they laugh, sometimes they leak a little urine and they might need to wear a pad, and so they should be taxed less on bladder control products than men are, because it's a uniquely female thing, and it's more likely that women are going to need that. And so honestly, women really shouldn't have to pay tax at all on any of this stuff, and men should just have to make up the difference. So I think that like Joey Jojo said something about how long until feminists push for a bachelor tax. 1858, Joey Jojo. 1858 was when feminists started pushing for a bachelor tax, right? A bachelor tax in the U.S. in Massachusetts, because there were 27. Despite the fact that there were it was Michigan.
Oh, it would be Michigan.
There were 2/3 of the population was men, but there were still 27,000 women between 18 and 26 who were unattached, unmarried, and feminists of the day were demanding that a bachelor tax be implemented to pay to support all of these unattached women, since the men were not willing to get married. So bachelor taxes are no new thing, Joey Jojo. They are no new thing.
Well, and there is one by default in the federal income tax system. There is this thing called the Earned Income Tax Credit. The Earned Income Tax Credit is given to people who have children. Couples have children, and single moms have children. There aren't very many single dads with custody of children. To get the Earned Income Tax Credit, you have to be within a certain income range. You have to have custody of the child. The child has to live with you 50% or more of the time. This is all from back when we were eligible for it. We haven't been for a while. But in any case, so the Earned Income Tax Credit basically reduces the taxes of most married couples and single moms. But any guy who is unmarried and doesn't have custody of a child can't get that credit. Therefore, he pays higher taxes. And of course, childless couples are taxed. They're subject to the bachelor tax essentially as well, because you can't get the Earned Income Tax Credit for a lifestyle choice that doesn't involve producing children. The government wants to encourage people to have as many children as possible because they are running up an immense debt. Unfathomable, an absolutely unfathomable debt. And they need future workers who will pay that debt with their blood, sweat, and tears. And so, bachelor tax. They don't like it if you don't get married. They don't like it if you don't make babies. No matter how much they might say otherwise, that is the basic fact when it comes to government, taxes, and bachelorhood. But we've gone way off topic because we're not on our history anymore. So I'm going to start reading. We've actually got some more super chats since I had caught us up before. So let's see here. We have Hokibokusa. And we have, apparently I'm tripping over my own tongue tonight. We have Hokibokusa, gave us $10 and says, I'm not singing this. He says, "No, I'm every woman," dances. Then we have the Frenchinator 2 gives us $5 and says, "How do I better myself without looking for approval from other people? I find I get tired of other people." So I'm going to say one thing about this. it is neither rational to define everything about yourself, your view of yourself based on approval from other people, or to completely, utterly, and totally discount other people's opinions. It's better to take that into consideration, but measure it against what you already know of right and wrong, good or bad, success or failure. What are your goals? And that's more important than whether or not you have approval from other people. And you know, if it seems like everyone is against you in a particular area, you know, your choices are to look at why and see if maybe there's something they're paying attention to that you're not, or to, if you have figured out that there's something you know that they haven't figured out, your other choice then is to simply work as hard as possible to succeed regardless of what other people think. And there's been situations in the past where one or the other was right, and the person basically took the information available to them and used it to help themselves and shape their success. There's been times when somebody has bucked all of society's ideas of what were right or wrong, and maybe their success didn't happen during their lifetime, but in the long run, people had to acknowledge, you know. So I'm not going to say that you have to base what you think of yourself and what your goals are on everybody else's approval, but I'm also not going to say that there is no relevance whatsoever to other people's opinions, because there is. I don't know, I hope that helps. I guess the main thing is, like I said, you set your own goals, and you go by what you know is right, and you go by what you want to see happen in the world. And if you're able to make that happen, other people's approval doesn't change that. Other people's disapproval doesn't change it either. I mean, either you guys have anything to add to that?
Well, basically, all I was just going to want to say on that, because you kind of summarized it pretty well. But what I was going to say is basically remember that you exist entirely outside of what other people think of you. So even if everybody around you thinks, let's say, the worst possible, probably not true, but let's say that they did, you have totally it within yourself to say, I don't care what those other people think. I'm going to better myself so that I can be proud of my own self, so that I can be somebody that when I look in the mirror, I'm going to be happy to see that person. Kind of like what we were talking about with the wanting to challenge the all women are like that thing. You can do that for yourself. And you can also treat yourself to having some positive thoughts. So if you get stuck in like a negative thought cycle, you can say, you know what, I'm just going to ignore those thoughts. I'm going to think of something that I'm good at, or something that I like about myself. And by kind of challenging those negative thoughts, this is a key tenet of cognitive behavioral therapy, then you can kind of train yourself to catch yourself in those negative thought loops, and you can kind of gradually improve your self-outlook that way. So yeah, I'll let Karen go.
I think too, you know, like Benjamin Franklin made he sort of set out a list of things that he aspired to do or be, a set of principles that he aspired to live by. And he didn't say, I want everybody to aspire to this. I want everybody to conform to this code of conduct that I have, you know, decided arbitrarily or whatever to conform to. But he set out a code of principles, a list of principles that he wanted to hold himself to. And I think that if you actually decide on a set of principles, decide on a set of values that you think are worthwhile, and you continue to live up to them, it doesn't necessarily matter if other people notice or they don't. It doesn't necessarily matter if you get respect for that or you don't. It doesn't necessarily matter whether you get vilified for it even, or you don't. As long as you have your personal way of being, your personal decision as to how you want to live, and how you want to conduct yourself, and you do that, and you hold yourself accountable to that, I think that can go a long way to sort of insulating you against, sort of the court of public opinion, which is extremely arbitrary. It's extremely fucked up in a lot of ways. So doing that's what's really gotten me this far, or at least allowed me to have the thick skin that I have in the field in which I operate, right? Is essentially saying, am I living up to my personal code of conduct? Am I living up to my personal set of ideals, my rules that I have set for myself? And when I fail, I correct myself. When I fail enough to offer an apology, I do so, right? But I think that's really how you get away from that, is get away from that sort of, what do other people think of me? Because you have to realize other people are not necessarily the best barometer of honor or dignity or, principles or, a coherent stance on things, or, holding people to a standard, like a base standard of behavior. They're not always the best arbiters of that. And if you can actually set up a way of judging your own behavior so that you can self-evaluate all the time, then maybe you can get past the caring about what other people think of you.
It's like I said before, it's not bad to care a little, as long as you don't make it the focus of your self-worth. I could go into story time real quick. When I was in high school, I ran cross country. When I was in junior high school, I ran cross country. And I did this even though every single race I was going to come in last. It was a guarantee that at least among my own teammates, I was always going to come in last. Because I ran on a team that actually was able to compete at the state level. And I was a severe asthmatic. And severe enough, actually, that my parents had been told I wouldn't survive to be 21 if something didn't change. And so I didn't really run cross country. I ran the first maybe half a mile and then stumbled cross country for the rest of the race. But and except the last 100 yards, when I would see my dad there with my inhaler and I would sprint to him. And every race, I had my own goals. I'm going to finish this race as a goal. I'm going to finish it faster than I did the last one. And I'm going to make it all the way through without having an asthma attack until it's over. I'm going to survive this race, And sometimes it was, there's a girl ahead of me that's within reach. I'm going to beat that one girl. But more often than not, it was just, I'm going to finish this race. And I have had people who saw me run tell me, I don't know how you do that. How can you do that? You look like you're dying. You sound like you're dying. I actually beat somebody because I sounded like I was dying. She turned around and stopped and watched me run past her because she was shocked at how terrible I looked and sounded, while her coach was standing on the sidelines going, "What the hell are you doing? Run!" And I beat her because I wasn't fazed by it. And if I based my assessment of my cross-country athleticism on other people's opinion of my running and on other people's opinion of my reasons for doing it and whether I should or not and so on, I never would have done it. But I didn't do it for everybody else. I did it for me. I did it because it was hard. I did it because I was told that I probably couldn't. That's like one of those things, from Back to the Future. If you call, God, I can't think of the main character's name. If you call him a coward, Marty, yeah, you can't call Marty a coward, and you can't tell teenage Hannah, you can't do that. You're not strong enough. because that's the trigger word, trigger phrase. And I did for 3 years. I stopped in high school because I wanted to focus on my photography, but I proved to myself the thing I needed to prove by that time, and that was that I could do it. And it's other people's opinions. Other people's opinions matter when you're doing things for other people. And other people's opinions matter when you're doing things to other people. But other people's opinions don't matter when you're doing things for yourself. When you're trying to improve yourself, what matters is whether or not you actually are. And that's it. And thanks Wikipedia snippet for the Forrest Gump reference. Forrest Gump was a better runner than me before he had his braces off.
Run, Forrest! Run!
So, Hokebukisa gave us US $2 and says, "Fear me, I will say things." And then he gives us, little face here. This face is adorable with what looks like it's a
flexing biceps.
Yeah, flexing biceps and a mustache and glasses. I have one of those things. Depending on how well I pluck, I might have two. Honey Badger, French Honey Badger gave us $2 and said, "Taxes? Ree!" And then Hokebukisa gave us another $2 and says, "No more free shit is how you fix most of this." And I agree.
It is, yeah.
And guess who's demanding the vast, overwhelming, and overpaid majority of free shit?
I just couldn't guess. I have no idea.
It's beyond all of us to figure out that women might be who might be responsible for women demanding things. Chicks might be demanding things like free birth control and getting their lifestyle choices in terms
tax-free
of
tampons
paid for, and being exempt from the taxes that everybody else pays on things they use every day, and free education and initiatives and funding for their organizations and funding for
basically scholarships.
Funding for scholarships and funding for research that's specifically about women. And no, I don't know who that could be. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure it's cats. Cats are doing this. We have to get rid of the cats now.
Well, given that cats are all borderline personality syndrome, you won't be too far.
No. It's borderline personality syndrome. Come on.
There we go.
We couldn't have one show without a bad pun, Hannah.
Well, you made the first one.
Couldn't do it.
You were talking about cats and you said personality. But you didn't do it on purpose.
Oh fuck. All right, well, super chat.
That's part of the problem. Joey Jojo gave us $2 and said, "How long until feminists push for a bachelor tax?" Which we already answered. There already is one. And Hokebukisa gave us $10 and says, "Release the Kraken," which we already did. Ziranx gave us US $5 and said, "A rant Zerker in my HBR talk. Fired up Karen is just a hair under fired up Allison, but both are great." French Honey Badger gave us US $2 and said,
dare he? How dare he judge me as a hair less?
Well, it's because you cut yours so short.
There you go. That's why. Or your fingernails.
My dog,
there we go.
My dog is starting to whine again. Oh my god! Can you hear her?
Yes. Oh, the poor baby.
She wants to get in on the ranting.
I can't blame her. French Honey Badger gave us US $2 and said the government is a Ponzi scheme, and I can't argue with that. Especially after the way I've talked about taxes and pointed that out. They really are. And I've also called the Social Security system a giant pyramid scam. So there you go.
Well, it is, because it's not a fund. It's just a checking account. It's not a savings account.
Right.
So, you know, the people paying in now are paying that money's being pulled out in real time to pay for the people who've already retired. It's not a fund.
And the number of people it takes working and paying into it to support one retiree increases every few years.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely, yeah, it's absolutely fucking, like, by the time I retire, which I'll never be able to do, I can guarantee you. Dog, shut up. I'll never be able to retire. But by the time I get to retirement age, there will be nothing. There will be nothing left in the pot. Yeah. Because my parents and my uncle and all of the other baby boomers who were the most they were the most populous generation, but then decided that, okay, so we're going to have fewer children. Like, we are the biggest generation in history, you know, relatively. But we're going to have fewer children because, you know, all of this stuff is paid for. So we don't need to have 6 kids to make sure 4 of them survive, to make sure that we actually are taken care of in our old age by our own children. No, they were like, oh, yeah, no, like, all of this is already taken care of. And, yes, so we're going to have 1 or 2 kids and that's it. And that's what they did. And then they didn't realize that, okay, but who's actually going to be paying for the shit? It's the small brood of 1 or 2 kids that you produced. That's who's going to be paying the taxes, that because the government didn't tell you that it's not a savings account that you're paying into. It's actually a checking account that's being paid into by others and being withdrawn by you.
You know, what's in the United States, what's really bad is a couple of presidents ago, I should say, they tried, the Congress tried to debate reforming the Social Security system. And the left and the right could not agree on how it should be done. So they basically put a temporary band-aid on it and scrapped the idea of reforming it entirely. They did nothing to fix the system, and it is
they haven't.
It is expected to die right about the time I would be old enough to retire. Yeah, it might actually die sooner than that. I don't expect it to retire either, but and it's really kind of a shame. There were things that were under discussion that were very reasonable ideas in terms of solutions. One of which was, instead of the government taking your money and putting it into a checking account to pay into the Social Security system, the idea would be, if they're going to have the government involved, which is not really necessary, if the government was going to be involved, then what they ought to do was have it set up so that people had an amount that was taken out of their checks, just like Social Security, but they could choose how it was going to be invested. You know, and that was tanked. The left decided, this was an idea that was fronted by the right. The left decided that you personally are not smart enough to decide where your retirement funds are invested, to decide whether or not to put your retirement funds from your work that you get paid for, that what you earn. You're not smart enough, according to them, to decide, I'm gonna go for an IRA. I'm gonna go for my company's retirement plan. I'm going to go for this popular mainstream retirement plan. I'm going to read more about the available retirement plans out there and pick one. No, the government wants to put it into that checking account, and that's all. You don't get a choice.
Because the government needs it in order to pay the people who are already retired. And
it's in debt. It's already overdrawn.
Of course. Yeah, no, and it's like, but this is the thing, right? Like, it's like everything is fucking overdrawn. When you look at where we're at right now, like, we have a higher standard of living than at any point in history. Even people who are poor have refrigerators and TVs and game consoles and computers and laptops and iPads and fucking, cell phones and all kinds of shit like that, right? That like the wealthy get these new innovations, dishwashers and things. Dog, shut up. Dishwashers, things like that, about 10 years before the rest of us do. Okay, and we get them. Okay, but when you look at the amount of actual overall debt, right? And I'm not just talking government debt, I'm talking about debt held by individuals, right, and families, that is not on homes, not on the appreciable asset of, owning your own home, right? So cars, furniture, groceries, clothes, just vacations, right? The amount of debt that's being carried in Canada, in the United States, between the government and between people who are carrying consumer debt, right? Not mortgages, but consumer debt. You're looking at a huge, like I don't understand how any of this is even remotely sustainable. I'm just like, I'm looking at it going, okay, so who's going to pay it back? Like, I'm leaving. If I were to live like most people in Canada live, right, where I'm carrying essentially a debt that is roughly equal to the equity in my house, right, or slightly greater in terms of car loans and in terms of, credit card debt and things like that, like I'm leaving nothing to my children, nothing at all to my children to help them cover the government debt that I've encumbered them with. Like this, like how does anybody think this is fucking sustainable?
I halfway want to say they don't, and that might be the goal. Because there are people that want to see the United States semi-capitalist system that used to actually be capitalist break down, so they can replace it with another system.
Patriarchy, capitalism, blah, blah,
so
blah.
it's possible that there are people that are pushing this because it's not sustainable. But that's a whole other discussion, and I'm going to move on. Barnabas Seaworth. I like that name. I hope it's a real name, but it's probably not. But Barnabas Seaworth gave us $5 US and says, "Effing hell, when will be enough to satisfy these blood-sucking harpies? They claim to be oppressed by toilet paper." And yeah, I bet none of them are school teachers that have been toilet papered for giving a test on a Monday.
Oh well, actually,
on a Monday.
I wasn't claiming that feminists are claiming that they're oppressed by toilet paper. I was just saying that they have a bigger claim to that than they do to claiming they're oppressed by 5% VAT on tampons. Right? Because they consume more toilet paper instead of necessity. And they're taxed at 20% on the toilet paper that they probably use 3 to 4 times as much of as men do. So, I would say that women have a bigger claim to saying this is unfair. Just like I would say, like men require between 500 and 1,000 more calories per day than women do. And so maybe they should have a tax reduction on their food products that they purchase.
Food's not usually taxed in the U.S. at least.
No, food. Oh well, not in the U.S., but in Canada, food is heavily taxed. It's,
oh wow.
It's like goods and services tax. It really depends, right? If you buy a 6-pack of individual sized yogurts, you don't get taxed on it. But if you buy one individual sized yogurt, you get taxed on it. If you buy a chicken that's been cooked in store, you get taxed on it. If you get a chicken that's raw, you don't get taxed on it. So
I see. So it's
very it's value added. It's a value added tax. It's if this item is a luxury item, a convenience item, something that has been subjected to any kind of manufacturing process.
Yeah,
or
see,
some
we don't
kind
have
of
that.
service.
The most we
Yeah.
have is there's the one food that is considered a vice. Like in the U.S., we have all these laws, to control vices, big and small, actually. And so, and Frank Bullitt mentioned it actually in our chat. Soda or sugary beverages are taxed in the U.S. And that's something that is more recent. It's not like recent, but there was a time when those weren't taxed either. So,
well, I just want to say in Europe, right? Because when I was in Denmark, 20 years ago now, the tax on a can of soup was 20%.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I guess in light of all of that, it's even more ridiculous for feminists to claim to be oppressed by toilet paper, or rather the female equivalent of a toilet paper type product. Frenchinator 2 gave us $5 and said, I'm having trouble thinking of what my goals are. I think of it, and I just want to end up wherever I end up. What should I do? Alright, well that one's a little more difficult. I spun my wheels for 20 years. I'm going to go right flat out there. I wanted to be a nurse, and I wanted to be a teacher, and I wanted to be this, and I wanted to be that, and I really couldn't settle on anything. And your goals need to be, you look at a couple of different things. You got to be self-supporting. If you're not self-supporting, you're going to be miserable. And it took me a long time to realize, not necessarily that I shouldn't be supported by other people because I would be miserable, but that spinning your wheels doesn't get you there. You're gonna have to look at, what are you good at, what do you enjoy doing, what can you get yourself worked up to get up in the morning and go do, and what can you get yourself to get up in the morning and go do even if you're not excited about it today. And that's probably a good place to start with your goals.
And I would say too, right? Like, because like this whole career that I've got going now, it just fell in my lap. Like I just started speaking out, and it dragged me into it, right? Like I didn't choose it. I didn't set out to do it. It just happened. But essentially my entire life, the primary goal that I had was making a family. The secondary goal was being economically self-sufficient. I didn't really care. And like, I was one of those people that I was in the 99th percentile on every single aptitude test, except for clerical speed and accuracy, which was, like if you want to be a secretary or a stenographer or something like that. So essentially, other than typing, I could have done anything. I could have done anything. My mother wanted me to be a lawyer. My dad wanted me to be a doctor, or an engineer. And I didn't care enough about any of that to actually put in the base work that's required, these sort of 4 to 8 years of school and all of that. So I didn't care about in any of those things enough to put in that effort to actually do that and decide to do that for the rest of my life, right? So what did I do? Started out in a kitchen, cooking at the bottom, worked my way up to, first cook in a high-end kitchen, went into waitressing, earned my way, all of those things, right? Like you don't necessarily need to say, like I have this goal, this thing that I want to do with my life. What you need to do is just say, this is the goal that I have for tomorrow, right? And the goal that I have for tomorrow is to do well, earn my way in the world, be productive, make the world a slightly better place, make, even if it's just my world, make my world a slightly better place, and just say that this is my everyday tomorrow goal, right? And eventually, I mean, not everybody, and this is the thing that gets me, like, it really is like Jordan Peterson said in an interview on The Agenda years ago, right? Most people don't have careers. Most people have jobs, right? And the fact that you have a job rather than a career doesn't mean that you're wasting your life, right? Because if you have a job, right, if you have something that you do that contributes to the world, right, you know, whether it's you know, being a farmer, or, you know, waiting tables, or being a cook, or, you know, being a tin basher, or, you know, being an electrician, or working for Mr. Rooter and snaking people's drains, or whatever, right? You know, you're contributing something, you're providing value to people, you're making other people's lives better and easier, and you're paying your own way through life, and like, that's nothing to be ashamed of, right? That's actually something to be proud of. And so essentially, you know, my view on this is you don't have to have some big grand plan for your life. Just have that incremental daily plan that every day you're going to break even or get a little bit ahead. You know, you're gonna either break even, you're gonna either continue to contribute and pay your own way and earn your own keep, or you're going to offer, you know, you're gonna improve yourself in some way, and that's really essentially how I looked at my life, and that's how I still look at it, right? Every day I either do something to maintain what I have or improve on it. And, you know, and you can't even remotely dismiss the aspect of things, you know, to do with luck, you know, to do with just, you know, being there at the right time in the right place, all of those things, right? So, you know, like, don't think that you have to have this big grand plan or this big end goal. You just need to be progressing. You just need to be, you know, taking those steps down a path towards something better for yourself and something better for other people.
I would also say, in terms of life goals and everything, a lot of people start with what do you want to do with your life, but the better thing to look at is what do you want to have in your life. You know, and if you're passionate about a particular thing, then that's one thing, you know, to want to do that with your life. But
there are
if you
some
don't
people
have a particular
who know when they're like in kindergarten, that they know what they want to do. Yeah.
But if you're not one of those people, and you look at, you know, what are you comfortable with? And not everybody has to be rich. Not everybody can handle being poor. And, you know, most people want to end up somewhere in between. They want to be comfortable. And you look at what's going to get you there. My dad kind of did that in terms of setting his life goals. He looked at how he wanted to live as his sort of what he was aiming for, not who he wanted to be necessarily when he was making his career choices. And yeah, he ended up adding who he wanted to be into that, and it does factor into that. But his first thing was, you know, whether he wanted to have a family, if he was going to have a family, how dedicated he was going to be to that family. And that was important to him because of his own family when he was growing up. And, you know, he made decisions based on how comfortable he wanted his family to be, and what sort of lifestyle he wanted his family to have, and so on. If you don't want a family, you make your decisions, you know, based on how you want to live without a family. This is one of those things where you're not going to make a wrong decision. It's like the life police, the this is your life police are going to show up and say, gosh, you picked the wrong career path, we're going to put you in career jail. Or, gosh, you chose the wrong earning capacity, we're going to put you in financial class jail. You know, you make changes as you go along. So it's really, a lot of it is really based on, you know, do you want to be able to afford a certain level of things? Do you care about keeping up with the Joneses? You know, do you just want to be comfortable without having to go overboard working too hard for it? And you kind of go from there. You look at areas of work that you're suited to and don't mind too much doing. You know, obviously, if you're wanting more money, you might have to look at harder areas of work or areas that require an education. But not everybody has to go to college. Not everybody has to, like Karen said, not everybody has to have a profession. And not everybody even has to keep the same job for 30 years. It's not even normal to do that anymore. So there's your answer. I think we've pretty much covered that. I don't think there's an angle we haven't covered that we can. So I'm going to go ahead on with the rest of the super chats. Anthony Ludden gave us $5, and it looks like there was no comment associated with us, so just thank you, Anthony, for the $5. Phil de Bears gave us $5 and said, hey, we have these enormously beneficial services to offer, and you're not allowed to refuse receiving them or paying for them. If you try, we have guns. Yep, that's the government in a nutshell. Frenchinator2 gave us $5 and said, guess it has to do with being an incel, but I am still not moved out yet and about to graduate. I guess I feel trapped. My generation did that.
Yeah, I have my two kids. We're actually putting them on a timeline as to, you know, when they're going to move out. Like they're 23 and 21, and they have not gone to post-secondary, but they both work, and they're both perfectly capable of supporting. Like they could be Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert from the Anne of Green Gables. You know, the brother and sister who live together. They could just go and find an apartment and live there, and, you know, just sort of learn what it's like to be independently self-sustaining, you know, individuals together. And, you know, but it's essentially like, I never expected this of me when I was their age. I never expected that you know, I would have to have some like grand plan for my life or anything like that. And I think that one of the pitfalls that kids fall into these days, and I think that they would actually do well to avoid it, is they are encouraged immediately, you know, sort of in grade 12 in high school to choose a life path, right? Like a life path, a career path. Choose what you want to do for the rest of your life. And I don't think that most kids are at the point where they would, you know, it's one thing to essentially decide that, you know, you're going to go into a trade, right? And you're going to earn as you learn, and you're going to do hands-on work, and you're going to do that for a while until you figure out, you know, what you might want to do for the rest of your life. But and I think that a lot of people in previous generations went that route. They went through the trades. They went and earned as they learned. They went through an apprenticeship. They got a little bit of hands-on experience that, you know, and then they maybe went back to university to get a profession. But essentially what we're doing now is we're essentially telling kids, you know, 17, 18 old, right? Now you must decide what you want to do for the rest of your life and what you're going to invest the next 4 to 8 years of training, right? At your own expense, in training yourself to do. And I don't know that kids of 17, 18 years of age are capable. I mean, I know that, like, looking at my boyfriend, what did he do first? He did a degree in English and philosophy. right? And then he was like, what the fuck am I going to do with this? Nothing. Work at Starbucks, right? And then he went back and did engineering. But that was like $30,000 worth of, like $27,000 worth of student debt, right, of tuition fees that he paid to get that useless fucking degree. And it's like stuff that he could have learned by surfing the internet, right? And it's like, why you do that? Why you do that? Like, why would anybody, like, you don't go to college to find yourself. I mean, like, this is one of the things that, like, infuriates me, right? And it's a line from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You don't go to college to find a job. You go to college to find yourself. No, you don't. Because in Canada, for every dollar you spend on your tuition, the taxpayer is spending $2.50 fucking to pay you to find yourself.
Well, and if
right?
people don't care about that, you end up with all that debt. That's where you find yourself. You find yourself in debt. And I'm going to be blunt. We're getting to the point where the show is now 2.5 hours. What Karen's talking about is very important. I'm going to shorten it a little bit. Don't waste your money on a degree that you're not sure of, or on a degree that you're taking because somebody else thinks you should, or on a degree that you're taking that you don't know will get you a job, that you're not sure is going to be marketable. Don't study 14th century French poetry, for instance, as your degree if there are no jobs that degree is going to obtain for you when you get out of school. And you're gonna get out of now. If you're already doing that, if you're already living with your parents and going to college, you're getting a degree in something, and you have a part-time job on the side for extra money. No, Frank Bullitt, that applies to everybody now because everybody ends up in debt. Women shouldn't do it either. Women shouldn't make those mistakes either. And there's two reasons. Actually, there's a whole host of reasons depending on how many kids they have. Their debt is their family's debt. They're going to have to work it off, or their husband's going to have to work it off, or it's going to affect the quality of the home they can provide for their children, or it's worse, going to affect what they can provide immediately, and it's also going to affect their potential inheritance. And it does. Eventually, it does get dumped on the public if they can't pay it off.
Like child support debt, like alimony debt, student debt cannot be expunged in a bankruptcy.
Yeah.
It cannot be expunged in a bankruptcy. So it's a guaranteed fucking loan.
The upshot is
you pay for it whether you get any value out of it or not.
The upshot is it's not a wise choice or a responsible choice for either gender to make. And yeah, there are some women out there, and there are some there too that have high-paying jobs that their degree is not suited for, especially if you look in the college industry itself. I've run into both sexes with that. But the upshot is that most of the time, if you get a degree that's completely useless, you're going to end up with all that debt, and you're not going to get hired by anybody based on that degree. You might get hired by Starbucks, but they're not going to pay for your college. So, that said, for what I was going to say about if you're living with your parents, you're already in college, you got a side job, and you're bringing in a little spending money, put half of it away. Put it in savings. Don't buy coffee, fancy coffee. Don't go sit at Starbucks and fund them.
Go to your bank rep.
Fund your future.
Go to your bank rep. Go to your bank rep. Open a tax-free savings account, okay, and have an automatic debit come out every month from your checking account into that tax-free savings account. $25, $50, $100, whatever you think right? That just automatically goes from your checking account into your savings account. And don't attach your savings account. Do it a tax-free savings account maybe, or just a regular savings account. Don't attach it to your debit card. Absolutely refuse to attach that account to your debit card. So you can't spend that money on a whim. You would actually have to go in and make a withdrawal from your bank branch, right? So essentially do that. That's what my daughter did. That's what my son has done. They both have extensive
Karen,
savings.
they get the point.
So
Needs to be short. In any case, like I said, save money. Don't spend it all. And yeah, don't worry that you're living with your parents while you're in school. Many people do that. A lot of students that don't do that live in a dormitory, which frankly is the equivalent. And it's the only time in your life you can live in those conditions without being labeled as living in squalor. And don't freak out if you're stuck in your parents' home for a period of time, unless your parents are antsy about it, unless your parents are trying to push you out the door. Don't freak out about that. That is actually not abnormal in today's society. But just look at how you can be responsible in that situation. And I'm gonna finish this off by plugging a book, not actually affiliated with us. The writer's name is Aaron Clary. The book is called Bachelor Pad Economics, and I think every young man should read it. Every woman who's going to be a mother should read it. Every girl who's going to live on her own before she gets married should read it. Okay, and everybody lives at home. Wherever you live, that's home. So it shouldn't be embarrassing to be living at home as an adult. You take your time. And like I said, it's not any different than living in a dormitory. And students living in a dormitory are just as dependent on their parents as you are on yours. When you get out of college and you find employment and you look back at what can I do to make up things up to my parents, that's not a bad thing. But like I said, be responsible. And I do recommend that book. Now let me go on to the rest of the super chats. We have, let's see, I was at Xeranx gave us $5 and said, finding oneself is supposed to be expensive, Karen. It's called an investment. If I said this looking at you, I wouldn't be able to avoid cracking. It's about making a home here. Then we have Anthony Ludden gave us $5 and said, meant to type a message earlier, just wanted to say good show. I blame the tired. And that is our last super chat. Thank you, Anthony Ludden, and thank you for the message as well.
And that's it. Let's get the fuck out of here before any more of these things come in.
Yes. Thanks everybody for listening. I'd like to thank my very long-suffering co-hosts and all of the people who worked so hard to make Honey Badger Radio happen, including the guys that helped put together the video to my pre-recorded monologue. Thank you all, and good night.